Morgan Stanley released earnings today, and they were rather good. We're going to dive into that. They closed up 6.5%. I think they hit as high as 7.5% throughout the day. And that's actually fairly significant considering the company pays a dividend of 3.3%. So basically, if you bought before today and you just held for a year and it just went sideways the entire time, that's about what you'd expect to get in a year. S&P 500 averages about 10%. So there's your 10% right there, 9.3% right there. Anyways, Morgan Stanley profit exceeds forecasts on deal-making surge. Shares jump to record. By the way, I've made a video on Morgan Stanley outlooking the company or just doing a basic outline. And I said in that video that Morgan Stanley is my favorite financial institution. So I kind of incorporate investment firms and banks, even personal banks, all in that category, right? And Morgan Stanley is my favorite one. Personally, they have the best track record over the last at least 5 years, but probably a decade. They pay a good dividend on top of it, one of the better ones, and they just keep having good earnings, right? I mean, this is like the cherry on top. I've actually been doing pretty well on it. I think I'm up like 40%-ish, and I've only held it for less than a year. So I don't know exactly when I bought it, but probably somewhere around here. But I don't know. Anyways, it would have been closer to the 8. I think it was 85-ish, roughly. But Morgan Stanley profits surpassed earnings. Third quarter for investment banking, yada, yada, yada. I don't care what their CEO really has to say. I guess, okay, bullish on IPOs. That's interesting, but I don't know. So the bank's stock rallied 7.6% to a record high of $120.80 this morning. Morgan Stanley profit jumped 1.88 per share, exceeding analyst views. So they exceeded it significantly, right? Significantly. Well, that's what, 20%-ish? Not quite, 10, 15. So that's pretty good. Investment banking revenue jumped 56%. So they've been doing really good on their investment side. But everyone's really kind of been doing, as they point out here, Goldman Sachs is doing good, Morgan Chase is doing good. I think Wells Fargo beat. Basically, every bank is beating, and with rates dropping, that shouldn't be really too surprising. Anyways, so, I mean, there's really not a whole lot here. They did good. I don't know what they guided. $64 billion in net assets. That's crazy. Dude, banks just have so many assets. It's nuts. Yeah, so this is their performance versus broader market. They've done a little bit worse. But, I mean, also you have to factor in the fact that they pay most of the time there. It's now a 3.3% dividend, but when I held it for most of it, it was near a 4% dividend. So I was assuming this does not include dividends. It doesn't look like at the close October 15th. Shares in Wall Street Giant roughly 20% this year, trailing S&P benchmark. Yeah. So S&P's risen 22%, Morgan Stanley's risen 20%. But if you add the 3.5 dividend compared to the 1.5 dividend, they are exactly the same. But it's better, right? Because if you're an individual stock holder, right? If you invest in single stocks, maybe not even mainly, but significantly, it makes up a significant portion of your portfolio. Maybe it is your retirement, maybe it's not. But if you're investing in Morgan Stanley, you're probably not expecting it to be your top asset. You want it to do well. If it's one of your top ones, that's great, right? When I'm super impressed with what Morgan Stanley's done since I've held it, right? I'm super happy. However, I'm not expecting it to be my top performer. Just like in the S&P, you're right. Like I would prefer, like I own Microsoft and I own TSM and I own some AMD, right? I expect my tech stocks to do better. And Morgan Stanley is more of, okay, this pays a good dividend. This is diversification into the the financial institution field, right? I prefer to not just be entirely in tech, right? So you got to branch out. I have Vici as a REIT. I have Dukes as utilities. I have Morgan Stanley as a financial institution, right? You can't just be in tech or else you're going to get slaughtered if tech's getting slaughtered. And not that it truly matters if you're investing long term, right? Like we are. However, you would prefer that if banks were doing well, right? And tech was getting slaughtered, you could move a little bit of that bank money into tech, right? assuming you believe in a long term, it's just like a short term trend, whatever it may be. That's how I personally like to invest. So you're probably not buying Morgan Stanley being like, oh yeah, Morgan Stanley is going to crush the market. That's more of an Nvidia or a TSM, AMD, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, whatever it may be. Those are the ones you're expecting to fly high. So the fact that this is mimicking the S&P 500 and you're getting that diversification, maybe you love just investing in bank stocks, but I'm assuming not. So Morgan Stanley is doing great. I made another video. I said it's my favorite financial institution, stock, my favorite bank, whatever you want to call it. I like it. I'm going to keep holding it. It's definitely my largest hold in the banking one. I think it's great. I don't know if it's too late to jump in. I usually don't make those calls. I think it's a good company. I like to buy companies that are good. Its PE is certainly high for a financial institution. You see 20 PE and that doesn't seem super high, but generally banks, I've done a lot of the banks. All the major banks are usually somewhere in between 11 and 19. So this is the higher end of that. However, you have to make the decision. Usually good companies are going to come at a premium or they're on bad times, right? ASML, companies that are good, TSM, AMD, Nvidia are going to come at premiums. There's going to be times where they dip, but if they're dipping, there's probably a reason. It's probably because they're having some sort of, like ASML, it's down a bit. They didn't have a particularly great earnings. It wasn't terrible, wasn't great. They're down a little bit. So you're either going to have to buy at a premium or you're going to have to wait till they're doing bad. So, and that kind of defeats the purpose of just buying great companies, right? So anyways, I like Morgan Stanley. I'm going to keep holding it. It's going to keep paying me a good dividend. I'm glad that they're seeming to do well. I didn't see exactly where they, what they guided for, but I don't even know if they did for 2025. And if it doesn't particularly matter, I don't really care unless it's horrible, which clearly it isn't. Clearly there was nothing terrible news in there. So bank jumping 6.5% is a lot. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. So I appreciate if you guys made it this far, and if you want to leave a like or subscribe or whatever it may be, that it helps the channel out a lot, right? If you, whenever people leave likes, like it literally has been helping my channel so much. I have a couple people that have subscribed that I know are leaving likes and comments and things like that, and believe it or not, my channel has been doing significantly better than it has, before I had people doing that. So I appreciate if you did make it this far. Even if you're new here, just leave a like, move on. It will help me out quite a bit. So, but anyways, I just appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you guys later.